So looking at the theory itself, we can just simply use a very simple coordinate system to describe this. And what Malthus was saying is that we have a y-axis that will be population and an x-axis that is simply time. And I'll just put this here. Population and time. And according to his experience of the time, he was saying that whenever humanity is able to do so, it will grow in its numbers. So population will be increasing. So this is his basic experience. Population grows. And what he is saying then, that this is not going to be infinite, so it will not be growing till the end of nowhere. Instead, there will be a kind of limit here, so an upper bound to population. I just put here limit and upper bound. And also I can put here carrying capacity. This is going to be the term that we will be using later on in environmental management language. So carrying capacity of the actual place or the region that we're looking at, where the population is growing. What is this line going to represent? Actually, at that time, it was fertility of the land, or we can simply say ability to produce food. So that's how we can just think about the natural environment. How much people is the soil, is the land able to provide food with? And what he said is that actually whenever population is crossing this limit, then there will be a point when either there is like a war for resources, or a famine in itself, or maybe a pestilence or a plague outbreak will decrease the number of the population. And what he said in general is that there will be this oscillation up and down, this kind of trap area here for a population of a certain country, for example. So the population is not going to be able to overstep this limit infinitely. It will drop and perhaps increase again above the limit, but it will be moving around this limit or carrying capacity of the land. What else was Malthus saying is that actually with technological development, and that is what we've seen in the Age of Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution, with developing knowledge about, for example, food production and land management, is that we can move this line upwards, for example, over here. And then this will mean that over here we will have a higher population that is able to be provided by this land compared to a more underdeveloped technological or agricultural production system. So that is what Malthus was saying, that there are these different limits. And actually, if we look at nowadays, well, with the use of fertilizers and so on, are way above that original line that we had in like the 17th or 18th century. And so even today, actually, population around the world is increasing in many places, especially like Africa or such. And we still haven't reached that limit, that point where overall there will be not enough resources to provide for the population. So this is then one point that we need to think of, that the limit or the carrying capacity of this area can change. And also we can think of whether Malthus was actually right. And he was saying that population would, by nature, increase. Now, he did not actually take into consideration things like the social development, that is simply like family planning or some kind of limiting of the population number by administrative regulations, as we see in China. And so this is why actually it's not very realistic to say that this line would always be in such a direction, because if we look at modern, more like developed countries, in many places there's a stagnation of population, or we can also say that in some places population number is decreasing just because of the social circumstances. What else perhaps we can think of? So this is the second point of consideration, that in reality this is not going to be in such an angle. What we can also think of is kind of management or sharing of resources, or resource management. So to what extent are we going to be actually reaching this limit, and where it's very much about the distribution of the resources. So I just put here a third point. The distribution of resources is that it's going to be obviously an important factor that we need to take into consideration. Okay, so there is a kind of carrying capacity oscillation, there is population growth, is that actually going to happen by nature all the time? No. And the third point is distribution. Or allocation of the resources. This is just what I put here additionally, but definitely we need to know that there are the different carrying capacity levels if we think of Malthus theory and the oscillation of the population around this line. So this is what we should remember here.